Good morning, class. Today we would discuss about the poem A Letter for Home composed by Himani Banerjee. As we all know that the works by diaspora writers bear witness to the distinctive circumstances of South Asian Canadian experience and writing. But this distinctiveness is visible when the work is set outside Canada, often in the country of the writer's birth. For example, the works of Rohinton Mistry. Though the novelist is based in Canada, his works talk about India. Similarly, as the stories of Farida Karodia talk of her homeland. The South Asian writers, as well as poets in Canada, usually find that the icy, hostile social environment exceeds the cold and forbidding Canadian climate. It was a social environment that made them feel doubly marginalized. First, they felt marginalized because they were immigrants, and second, because they were racially, linguistically, and religiously different from the host people. They were minorities, the racial, linguistic, and religious minority. Mainstream Canadians were sometimes openly antagonistic towards the immigrants or judged them as too different or wrong kind of immigrants. So nobody should be shocked that the works of South Asians speak about alienation, stings of racism and religious bigotry, pains of daily realities and regular struggles of adjustments. These are the recurrent themes of the South Asian literature in Canada. All of these jointly shaped the lives, politics, and art of theirs. The social and political issues were not the only reasons for these writers and poets to go back to their roots. Nostalgia also played an important role. They trace their origins from one of the countries of the Indian subcontinent. Some of them came to Canada directly from their homelands, while some others indirectly by the way of Britain or a former British colony, usually East or South Africa or the Caribbean or the Pacific Islands. However, the term South Asian refers only to a single geographical location, a particular national group, or a specific region. It's worth mentioning that many of these writers and poets have never seen the countries of their ancestors, and in some cases, several generations of a family have experienced transcontinental shifts, say from India to England to Canada. South Asian Canadians are proud of their ancient civilizations and traditions and determined to make their inheritance part of their writings. This is true of all genres. The immigrant writers and poets understand the intricacies of power, its methods of manipulation, silencing, and exclusion. They presented the upheavals of relocation, reshaping the lives, sometimes the advantages of untortured vision, and less tired responses too. They also often talked about racism and bigotry. Their writings are based on their personal experiences. The women poets are no exception here. They too have not hesitated in speaking their minds about all these experiences. Women immigrants, members of racial and religious minorities, are the great survivors and fighters. Although some of them were professionals and even academics, yet they faced discrimination. Such discrimination, not just racial but also being women, has often shaped their writings, making rooms of their own. They spun their own yarns, showing their love for language and its nuances. Basically, this poem is about alienation as well as assimilation. The poet is not only missing the land of her birth, which is full of stories and myths, but she also isn't able to assimilate fully by not severing emotional ties. The umbilical cord symbolizes her roots. We find the expatriate sensibility here. The impulse to take the literary journey home, towards history, towards memory, towards past, is made possible only because of her experiences as a migrant. Facing rejection and discrimination, it is natural for an immigrant to stick to his or her ethnic identity, and this is what the poet has tried to underline in this poem. The poet says she has many things. feelings, emotions, desires associated with this land. A land, her present home, and to reach here, she had to traverse a long, unwinding, and arduous journey, both physical and emotional. This journey symbolizes a wistful longing for the past. It talks about the pain of homelessness. We find here a complex view of the double vision experienced by most diasporic individuals as well as communities, a vision that is at the same time forward looking as well as looking back. This longing for the past is a part of the human existential condition. No matter where one lived, even if one lived in the same place all one's life, one would look at the past, at lost moments, at lost opportunities, lost love, etc. Thus, we can say that longing for a past is a part of human nature. Past is like a comfort zone to which we all retire to ever so often. The poet carries the memories of the past along, just as one carries the ashes of dead people or a dead person in an earthen jar. She too has her own earthen jar, which not only has the ashes of her forefathers but also the memories. Memories which are associated with food, daily chores, customs, rituals, and traditions. She feels that her roots are still there in her homeland, which she has tried to bring along in the form of memories. The poet says that she has buried that earthen pot in that new land, new place where she lives now, under her hearth, and has built a fire there which she feeds daily to keep it alive and burning. The shapes that are formed by the fire, those shapes connect her with her homeland. Here we find a reference to the shifting designation of home. The diaspora literature always poses a question: where is that home? Is it the present place where these diaspora writers and poets live, or the past place which is still alive in their memories? We always find an anxious sense of dislocation, which is very typical of expatriate writings. Next part of the poem refers to a well-known legend about the seer Chanakya. He was insulted by the clan of King Nanda. Chanakya, being a Brahmin, tied a part of his hair as choti, a knot. Seeking revenge, he untied the knot and vowed to tie it again only after removing the Nanda clan from the throne. Along with that, he would eat ash if he did not redeem his vow. The ash here in the dinner plate refers to that only. The poet says, while she too keeps her hair untied but has not vowed for any revenge to insults heaped on her. The ash here is the insults that these expatriates face on daily basis. They have to bear these insults as they can't do much against them. She feels as if the past still throbs in her, the same attachment, same calling she gets from her homeland. The last section of the poem refers to those who sacrifice their lives seeking to free it from foreign rule. Alternatively, it could also refer to the famous story by Leo Tolstoy called How Much Land One Need. The poet says that while holding a handful of soil from her motherland symbolically, she feels like those Indian farmers whose lands were taken away forcibly by the colonizers, and defending which they died clinging to the dust from their lands. Himani Banerjee too holds her dust in her hands. She too lives her past life in her memories.